We're learning the source of the fire, an electric scooter.
E-bike fires have caused a stir worldwide, and in this video I'm going to talk about what's likely going to happen to the market. They're going to either change now or face ill-informed decisions from lawmakers, which is pretty much guaranteed. Bruh. There's been talks about banning e-bikes altogether.
If we are outlawing, which I think is necessary, but it's still of concern.
That's very unlikely. And the reason is because most of these e-bike fires happen in low-income, blue-collar neighborhoods. There are over 65,000 food delivery workers who rely on these e-bikes to feed their families. Getting rid of these e-bikes would be impractical. Well, you don't live in New York. No worries, right?
Although we're having this here locally, we do need the federal government to step up. We do need the federal government to step up. Federal government.
It's going to have a ripple effect. There's no manufacturer that's going to omit one of the biggest markets in America. Before we get into the gloom and doom situations, I want to point out that e-bikes are treated somewhat unfairly. There's a growth rate of over 200%, while the growth rate of fires increased only by 100%. And the situations where fire was fatalities is 90% non-e-bike related. So what does this mean for the industry, and what will it mean for you? Let's start off. Requires the FNDY to develop an informational campaign to educate the public on fire risks posed by mobility devices powered by lithium-ion batteries. The FDNY is already doing this for grandmas on Facebook. Require the fire department to report on safety measures to mitigate the risks associated with powered mobility devices. So they might give advice to maybe charge outside or charge on a wired cart. I'm not sure how practical it is to charge outside, but that would be a lot safer than inside in an apartment building where there's no escape route. Provide food delivery workers with information on safety measures that mitigate the fire risk posed by powered mobility devices. It would require the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, in consultation with the fire department, establish materials that provide guidance on safe use and storage of powered mobility devices. So basically, this is a CYA situation. Third-party food workers, they're going to get flyers, or they're going to get disclaimer forms that they'll have to read and then sign, just so that they know the safety standards and the employer sent it out to them. This is where it gets interesting.
And the second bill I have is more controversial. We're all trying to address this issue. If we are to not sell batteries that are reconstituted, refurbished, to not sell batteries that are reconstituted, refurbished.
So this means that you won't be able to get your battery repaired because they are loose cells. This means that you won't be able to buy secondhand batteries. But if you can't buy secondhand batteries, this means that you won't be able to sell secondhand e-bikes or buy secondhand e-bikes. How does this work really? This thing can get really invasive, and if you can't sell your e-bike after using it for a few years, yeah, that's going to be I'm not sure how they're going to enforce this. It can get really ugly. This next one is a bit of a big deal.
We need to make sure that products sold in the city of New York are safe for New Yorkers. It's why I'm proud to be introducing, and today we'll be hearing one of my bills, which requires that in order for lithium-ion batteries to be sold, that they be certified by a nationally recognized testing laboratory. That they be certified.
He mentioned specifically the lithium-ion battery. However, he didn't mention the components like the controller or like the charger or like the drivetrain. Your listing is typically done by components, so you'd have to get a separate listing for your charger, separate for your drivetrain, and a separate for your battery. So there are UL listed bikes as it is right now. The ones that use Bosch components are UL listed, and that's Cannondale, Tern, and some other brands. Turns out those brands, the price is around $3,000 to $10,000 for their e-bikes. It's very expensive. It would be a bit of a disaster if e-bike minimum prices were at $3,000 a piece. How this works is that you have a Bosch drivetrain that is UL listed. You have a Bosch battery charger that's UL listed, and then you have a Bosch battery that is UL listed. All three from this UL listing, UL 2849, and it costs thousands of dollars to get this listing. So the problem is that when e-bike manufacturers are going to get their UL listed e-bikes, which will happen, it's going to cost a little bit more, and on top of that, there's going to be less selection. The way Bosch structures their e-bike stuff is that they have maybe 9 motors, 10 batteries you can choose from, and 3 chargers you can choose from. And so these manufacturers like Turn and Cannondale, they're just purchasing these parts and then making their e-bikes out of those batteries that you can choose from. You have 10 batteries, 9 drivetrains. That's a lot of mixing and matching you can do. And the good part of that is that because there's only 10 batteries you can choose and 9 motors you can choose, you can find a replacement for your part. And if you have a battery problem, you can replace your battery. If you have an engine problem, you could replace your engine. It's all nice and dandy, but there is a big drawback. Out of all of this that I've seen, they only offer 36 volt batteries. If we're going to be limited to 36 volts for all e-bikes because of a manufacturer decides that's all they want to get UL listed because of the pricing, that's going to severely limit what you can have. What we have right now, you can get a 36 volt e-bike, you can get a 48 volt, 60 volt, 72 volt, and if you shrink it down just to 36 volt, all of the sudden that market is very compact to what it is now. Hopefully what this means is that while we have less selection, we're going to get easier replacement parts and repairability. I'm hoping that this will improve upon that, and it'll be easier to get repairable components, because with the UL 2849 listing, you have to get everything UL listed. And that means that controller, that drivetrain, that battery, manufacturers, they're not going to want to get slightly different models for slightly different brands just for that segmentation, because who's going to pay that fee? Are they really going to pay it? Or what this means for enthusiasts is that your pool of selection is going to be more limited. For battery builders, this is going to be a bit of a disaster. You can't build your batteries and get UL listed. It's not to say that you can't build safe batteries. I mean, you can just use lithium iron phosphate to build your batteries and they'll be super safe. It's just that these lawmakers, they don't really take that into account. Anyhow, that's all I've got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. See you in the next one. Take care.